Welcome, guys. I'm Dr. Ott from Tolt Travel Therapy. I'm wondering, have you been having low back pain, knee pain, calf cramping, pain in your arms, hips, feet? If you have any of these symptoms, it could be due to weakness in your glutes. So thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the glutes. I've got my partner Thor here with me today. He is a computer scientist by day, but an honorary physical therapist by night, as we get to talk about these things all the time together. And through a series of his own injuries, he's been able to learn a ton about this topic. And I hope that we can help you to understand a little more how to do a self-assessment on if this might be a problem for you, what you might be feeling, and then we'll give you some solutions on how to solve this problem for yourself. So
awesome. Let's talk about glutes.
Yeah, the glutes. So tell me a little bit from your point of view, some symptoms you were maybe experiencing and some of the things that we've discovered that turned out to be due to weakness in your glutes.
Yeah, well, I have recently recovered from a really painful hamstring injury. And the hamstring injury is a blessing and a curse. Of course, no one wants to get injured, and that was hard to recover from. But it really taught me a lot about my body and ways that I didn't know I was using my body incorrectly. And really just I think of it as biomechanics of everyday life, like just the walking and sitting and standing and jogging, but just normal day-to-day activities. It blew my mind that I was doing them wrong for so many years.
Yeah, and it's little things like we've developed habits over a lifetime and small variations in our movement throughout the day, like you mentioned, for walking or picking something up that you do 100 times during the day can then cause degenerative irritation. It can cause inhibition in our muscles. Our body actually tells them to turn off. And then, of course, that leads to more compensation and more variation in how you're moving. And that can end up with other areas of pain or discomfort or difficulty with moving.
Absolutely.
So some things could be pain, like you had your hip pain that was related, but other things that maybe people wouldn't think were related to your glutes. What were some other things that you experienced? I have an example of Thor for a very long time, before I even knew him, told me that he had calf cramping pretty regularly in both calves.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. I found that for many years I was struggling trying to even diagnose why I was having calf cramping and calf fatigue. And really, at the end of the day, learned it was because I wasn't using my glutes properly. And so I was overusing my calves to compensate.
Yep. And we explored like hydration and stretching and mobility and all of those things. But it really wasn't until we started building strength in the glutes that you were able to have more stability throughout your leg and not overuse the calf muscles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So let's just talk a little bit about what are the glutes. This is kind of a common term that a lot of people maybe hear, but what is it? You actually have a lot of different muscles in your glutes. The gluteus maximus, of course, is probably what people think of the most, our big, strong hip muscle. But we also have a lot of small muscles that help to stabilize and control the hip. So you've got your big gluteus maximus muscles, but then underneath there's small rotators, and this includes our gluteus medius, which is one of the primary muscles we're going to be targeting, but also gluteus minimus, your piriformis. These not only help to rotate our hip, but they're also static stabilizers throughout our daily activities. So here's how I like to explain this. When you're walking in your everyday life and you step onto your foot, your glute muscles on the standing leg turn on. That keeps your pelvis level and your hip and knee and ankle all in a nice line. If your hip muscles are a little bit weak, essentially what happens is this motion. So now you're getting pulling and stress on the outside of the hip. pulling and stress on the inside of the knee. And this can even affect how your foot and ankle work throughout your day. So just imagine with every step, if you're getting this happening over and over again, that puts a lot of stress into our other joints versus having those hip muscles turned on and having nice alignment throughout your daily activities. So why are these weak in people? I think that in many of the people that I work with, our glute muscles are weak, and it's maybe become part of our culture and our society because a big piece of it is sitting. When we're in a sitting position throughout the day, that lengthens and stretches the glute muscles and essentially can cause them to be weak. Some other things that can lead to challenges, weakness with our glutes is how we're moving. We talked a little bit about how the glutes stabilize with just walking, but what about our standing posture and our foot and hip positions? How does having weak glutes affect our day-to-day life and our recreation, and how we perform during our days?
Yeah, well, one thing that was really valuable learning when we started working together on this is just how much we're actually not using our glutes at all. And like you mentioned, our culture of sitting inhibits our glutes so much that we kind of forget how to use them even when we're standing and walking or even running.
Yeah.
So I found that when I started thinking about it and inspecting how my own body mechanics were working, you can touch your glute muscle, you can touch any muscle and feel if it's contracting when you're supposed to be using it. And I was not using it when I was supposed to be using it.
Yeah.
So that, again, just was a big learning for me that my basic body mechanics were not optimal.
Yeah. And I think something that is important to note about the body is that our body's goal is to be as efficient with its energy as possible, which means if it can do a movement without using very many muscles, it would choose that over using a lot of muscles because that uses energy in our body. So our regular posture and our regular walking shouldn't be passive activities. You actually need to turn on your muscles to support yourself when you're sitting and standing and walking and moving throughout your day. And I think for a lot of people, most of life is passive. Even with walking, it's easy for us to use our ligaments just to support us, and ligaments connect a bone to a bone, and they don't contract like a muscle. They're just like a rubber band holding two pieces together. Whereas muscles can actively contract and relax and absorb impact as well during our day. And so having more active posture and active movements and thinking about your muscles helps you to move not most efficiently, but most supportively for your joints and your body.
Yeah. I think you should demonstrate what standing looks like using your glutes and what standing looks like hanging on your ligaments.
Yeah. That's what we're going to do next.
Awesome.
So let's show you a few examples of standing posture and some of the things that you can check on yourself to see if you might be dealing with any of these. I highly recommend that you take some photographs or videos of yourself, or have a friend or family member take some pictures, because sometimes it's hard to even feel in your own body if you're doing one of these things right or wrong. And also remember, we're talking here about kind of ideal positioning postures, but every body is a little bit different. So nothing should feel painful when you're doing it. You shouldn't feel like your instincts are right. So listen to your body. If it feels wrong, don't keep doing it. All right. So I'm going to have Thor stand how he used to stand when I first met him. This was just his body's natural positioning. One thing that we can point out, especially because he's so tall, tall people tend to, we call it, hang on their ligaments in the front of the hips. And so you can see that he's kind of pushed forward. And like I mentioned before, this is a really relaxed position for the muscles. You can just stack your joints and you don't have to do much work. And I think that's probably why you use that positioning a lot.
It's easy.
Another strategy people will use is locking out their knees. And Thor's hypermobile, has extra movement in his joints. And so when he locks out his knees, he's putting even more of the stress into his ligaments. Remember, those connect the bone to the bone, instead of actively supporting his joints with his muscles. So here's some things that I cued to help him improve this positioning. First of all, just a slight bend in the knees, just unlocked basically. Don't let them lock back. But already you might feel your quad muscles are going to be working in this position. And then we talked a little bit about tightening the glutes. And so by squeezing your hip muscles, you're now going to potentially flex a little bit in your hips. So instead of being back here, hanging on these ligaments, you're stacking your shoulders, hips, and ankles, right? How's that feel?
Much better.
We'll also be talking a little bit in future videos about activating your core muscles, but that's critical too as you're standing and walking and moving. So now go ahead and face our audience. Another thing that Thor originally did before I met him, his natural positioning, was stand with more of a toe out position. So again, this is a shortened position for the glute hip muscles, and it also widens his base of support. So again, it's easier because you can't get knocked off balance one way or another. However, when he turns his toes a little bit more forward, he's coming into a more active position for his glutes and quads. And that's going to help to support the hip joint, the knee joint, and again, the foot and ankle are even affected by what's happening up here at the glutes. So now, Thor, we're going to have you walk a little bit, and we're going to implement what we talked about earlier, where when you're stepping on one foot, you should feel your hip muscles turn on. And I'm going to have Thor actually put his hands on his bottom and feel for the muscle to turn on. And you can do this too. So just walk a few steps and feel if those muscles are turning on.
Yeah, definitely.
On. This is a great way that you can self-assess if you're feeling those muscles. Thanks so much for joining us today. Our next video will be talking about what you can do to improve your glute strength and activation. Join us next time.